Hey there, it's Kat and this is Brews and Reviews. It's time for my April wrap-up, and I'm just going to get straight into this because I read a number of books this month and I've got a lot to say about them. So the first thing that I read in April was Slam Volume 1 by Pamela Ribon and Veronica Fish. And this is about two girls as they start up on a roller derby team and just get into the world of roller derby, and there's a couple of different teams. And to be honest, the thing that drew me to this was, one, roller derby, because it's awesome. Two, look at how colourful this is, it's so bright, and I was like, yes please. Now, the story itself didn't quite live up to the imagery. Like, the imagery is really great and the artwork is fabulous. I just felt like it tried to say a little bit too much in such a short period of time. I mean, this is only volume 1, it's not exactly huge. It crams a lot into this very short space of time, and I feel like if we'd have taken a little bit of a longer time on stuff, it would have been more enjoyable as a whole. But it was enjoyable and I did like it, I just kind of wish it had been taken a little bit slower. So next up I read The Witch of Duva by Leigh Bardugo, because it was on the Audible thing where they put like kids audiobooks, some of them at least, on there for free, and I was like, ooh, free, I love it. So I picked up this tiny little short story. It was like under an hour, so that's how short it was. And it was an interesting story. I don't really have that much to say about it, but yeah, it was nice to be back in like the Grishaverse for like a folktale from there, and I liked it, it was good. So on that Audible free thing, I also picked up My Almost Flawless Tokyo Dream Life, which is a title that I just really can't say very well, so if that came out right then. And that's by Rachel Cohn. The story's about a girl who's in foster care and her mother's in prison, and her estranged father suddenly shows up and is like, oh, come live with me in Tokyo. And she's like, what? Anyway, the story's okay. Like, the way that she develops is okay, and the characters are like, yeah, okay. To be honest, none of that really holds the story up. The best thing about this book is the fact that it's like a love letter to Tokyo. It says so many things about Tokyo, and I feel like it just really captured that whole wanderlust of visiting a place like that. And it just made it seem like amazing, which is kind of really what I need right now, because we're all stuck inside, we can't go anywhere, we can't travel. But like, I was reading this book and I was like, it had such a sense of place, and I really enjoyed that about it. It's not the best book, it does have a really cute cover though. Anyway, beside the point, sorry, just got distracted by a shiny thing. The book's okay. I think if you are interested in sort of just reading something nice that makes you think, oh, I really like Tokyo, then maybe pick that book up. The rest of it's just fine. Passable as a story. I think I give it 3 stars. Next up I picked up Lion Heart's Tiger by V. Vaughan and C.J. Oliver. And, oh, it was not good. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read in my life. I mean, I gave it a 2 star. It wasn't like 1 star bad, but it was bad. It's a shifter romance, and the woman gets amnesia, and then she doesn't trust the guy, and then he tries to like help her find her memories and be like, yeah, we were in love. It honestly felt a little bit too cookie cutter for me, and I mean, like, they're shifters. They were like, one of them was a tiger and one of them was a lion. How do you make that cookie cutter? But they did, like, I don't know, it was weird. There were also these really extended period of time when they were like, my lion does this, and then they transform into like the big cats, and then they're like, ooh, I'm a cat, for way too long. They're like big cats that are just like, I will chase that squirrel. I don't know, it was weird. That's all I remember from it. It was weird. So with that bombshell, we are now moving on to the string of 5 stars that I had throughout April. Every book that I read after this point was a 5 star for me. Which is crazy, because I must have just been in like a really great mood, or be picking up books that like perfectly fit my mood, because I don't give this many 5 stars out. I'm a bitch when it comes to rating books. So I think I just had a really good like last half of the month. And that started with Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I noticed it was 99p on Kindle and I was like, oh, hello! So I finally picked up an Alice Oseman, and oh, it was so fucking cute. I literally have no other words. It was just so cute. I just sat there reading it and I was like, yeah, and I just sitting drinking my coffee and reading it, and I was just enjoying it because it was cute and I love it. So yeah, I'm not going to say anything else about it because I don't have any other words to say. Next up I read Inkheart by Cornelia Funk, and I did this as a buddy read with Faye from Mystery Date with a Book. This was a reread for me, and it wasn't for Faye, it was the first time she'd ever read it, so I spent the majority of this book trying not to spoil anything. Because I remembered like bits and bobs. It has literally been like 10 years since I've read this book. It's been a long time. So like I remembered things, but I feel like most of my memories are tied to the film, which I know was a bad adaptation of this, but like still, certain things happen, and I did read the sequel ages ago. I don't really remember much that happens in that though. Anyway, back onto this book. I think this book is great to go into not knowing anything about, but pick this book up if you really enjoy when characters really care about books. There is such a regard for the written word in this and storytelling as a whole, and it's just so beautifully spoken about, and it's such a great middle grade. So I mean, if that sounds interesting to you, definitely pick this one up. I don't want to spoil anything if you don't already know what this one's about, but like, it's a good time. And I did a reread of The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm sure pretty much everyone on BookTube knows what this book is about. It's The Raven Boys. So honestly, I enjoyed this so much more than I did the first time I read it. Like, I liked it the first time and it was fine. And I think mostly the end was the thing that convinced me that I liked it. I just found it quite slow the first time I'd read it, and that was because I was reading it on audiobook. And I just don't think that the narrator sort of pulled off the atmosphere. But as I was reading it physically this time, I was like, whoa, okay. So into that. I feel like I got the humour way more by reading it myself rather than listening to it, and just really enjoyed it, and I feel like the atmosphere was so well developed, and I liked the humour, and I liked how the different characters spoke to each other. I feel like the audiobook created like a distaste for certain characters in my head, but like when I was reading it I was like, I love you all. I love you all. So yeah, I just feel like I'm really happy that I reread this one and gave it a second chance, and now I feel like I can go through the rest of the series and just enjoy it all. Then I picked up A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, and this was a buddy read with Victoria from What Victoria Read. Right, okay, so this book, I haven't had a reaction like I had when I was reading this book for quite a while. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with the main character has cystic fibrosis, and she's just fucking awesome. I love her so much. Harper is a fantastic character. I really enjoyed all of the other characters that were involved in this plot, and I just really, really didn't want to put it down. You know when you get one of those books where you're like, I just need to keep reading it. And then when you're not reading it, you're thinking about it because you're like, that's a really good book. This is the kind of book that I would write fan fiction about if I was like younger and still writing fan fiction, which I promise I don't. I promise. Not at the moment. I don't. But like, that's the sort of feeling that it evoked in me, and I was like, wow, I just really enjoy this. It made me feel like a teenager again, which, you know, it's a long time ago now. My only slight problem that I had with this was with the very last chapter of it. I kind of guessed that this was the thing that was going to happen, and it was going to be a twist, and I didn't want it to happen, and then it did happen, and I was like, oh, okay, alright then. Like, it just wasn't something that I was particularly interested in being a plot twist in the story, but I don't know, I'm still going to pick up the next one, and I just really like the main characters. I don't even know how to sort of describe it, but like, I just want to add that like Harper is fucking fantastic. I love how she's just like, I was born this way and I'm gonna die this way, and what? And she just gets on with things. Like, it's so good to see that sort of disability representation, because like, yes, please, thank you. Next up, I finally picked up Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in Strange the Dreamer duology, and oh, I loved it so much. I pretty much listened to it in 2 straight sections. Like, I listened to the first half in one day and the second half in another day. And oh, it's so beautifully written. I feel like the writing in this is so stunning. It's almost lyrical, and mind you, lyrical writing isn't something that I normally enjoy. The sort of like mysticism and the way that the story develops, I don't know, it's not usually my thing, but when I was reading it, it's just so beautifully done, and you can feel these characters' pain and suffering, the PTSD that they have, the way that their past trauma is taking this huge toll on them. I just feel like it was so beautifully done, and it's one of those books where I'm like, oh, I finished it. I could just reread them both over again, right? And I want to read them together, like one after the other, so that I can just sort of lose myself in the atmosphere of that book. I feel like it was just so beautifully done, and that was a good book. So last but not least, I'm going to talk about these 2 books together because they're part of the same series. So we have East of West Volume 3 and East of West Volume 4. Now, this series I keep going on about it because I just read the second one last month. It's so good. It's so good. I can't even begin to describe how much I love this and how cool it fucking is. It's so cool. First thing that got me into the series was the fact that it was described to me as death on a robot horse that shoots laser beams, that's trying to track down his lost love, and like, okay, sure, sign me up. And then like, I started reading it and it just got cooler and cooler. Everything that happened, I was like, oh, this is really fucking cool. Really enjoying this. It's basically a sci-fi fantasy dystopian western on a parallel timeline to ours, where crazy shit has happened and the apocalypse is coming, basically. It's the coming of the apocalypse, and it's so cool. So cool. So the third book marks the end of year 1 of the apocalypse beginning, and the story definitely drastically shifts in the fourth book, and there's like a timeline of events, so you get to see past events and the things that have happened between book 3 and book 4. And the characters sort of move along in that time period. It's just so good. It's just so good. Please read these graphic novels. They're so good. The 10th and final one comes out, I think it might be this month. It comes out in the coming months. So, I mean, it's almost finished. I mean, you could pick up the whole set soon, but it's so good. Please pick it up. Please, please, please. Please. That's it for the books that I read throughout April. I feel like I had a really good end to the month, to be honest. And the good thing about all of this is that I was taking part in the Magical Readathon, and I managed to get 10 owls out of 12, I think it was. The only ones that I didn't get were Defense Against the Dark Arts, because I couldn't find a book that was about the coast. And I was like, I don't know, does this take place by the coast? I don't know. And the other one that I couldn't read was Divination, because I'm not up for randomly picking books. I have to read something that I'm actually interested in right now, or it's just not going to work. But yeah, most of those books that I read were actually owls books, and I did manage to pass my owls, and I will be becoming a wand maker. I am determined. I managed to get all the owls I needed, plus extra ones, and I also managed to complete the course requirements for becoming an animagus and for magical shop management. So I feel like I did good. I feel like it was good reading month. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!